Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem, which will be performed by Ms. Michaela Reed.
Two, three. Dear land of Guyana, of rivers and plains, made rich by the sunshine and lush by the rain. Such gem-like unfit between mountains and seas, your children salute you, dear land of the free.
Thank you. Please be seated. Before we begin, please let us take a moment to set the stage. This morning, in the very chamber where history is shaped, we welcome the future. Young leaders who have the courage to stand, the wisdom to debate, and the vision to inspire. The junior youth parliamentarians are here, ready to make their voices heard. Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Ministers of Government, Members of Parliament, youth parliamentarians from both the senior and the junior categories of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament, Clerk of the Youth Parliament, staff of the Parliament Office, distinguished judges, mentors, teachers, members of the media, and our valued online viewers joining us from all corners of Guyana and beyond. A very pleasant morning to you all. It is my privilege and honor to serve as your moderator for the first sitting of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament of Guyana. My name is Yannick December, Public Relations Officer. This morning's sitting features the junior category. Bright young minds, bold voices, and perhaps future presidents, prime ministers, speakers, and ministers in the making. Let us give them a thunderous round of applause. Thank you. In the interest of time and in keeping with the tradition of the National Assembly, I now invite the clerk of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament for the junior category to conduct the roll call, followed by the election of the Speaker of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament. Mr. Clerk.
Honorable members, I will now call the names of those persons who have become members of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament. Will the honorable members kindly answer as their names are called? Ms. Diona Stanislaus, Ms. Serena Scott,
Present.
Mr. Abhijit Prasad,
Present.
Ms. LaShawn Samuels,
Present.
Mr. Michael Brutus,
Present.
Mr. Timothy Mohabir,
Present.
Ms. Catherine Abraham,
Present.
Mr. Sebastian Khan,
Present.
Ms. Onaya Bennett,
Present.
Ms. Emily Bisnoff,
Present.
Mr. Sachin Prasad,
Present.
Mr. Shiv Bisimber, Ms. Princess Stephen, Mr. Javante Adams, Ms. Sapna Prasad, Ms. Janae Anthony, Ms. Lillian Thomas, Ms. Vernie Diodat, Ms. Julia Tusiram, Ms. Akila Edwards,
Present.
Mr. Bharat Dasrat,
Present.
Ms. Arima Drayton,
Present.
Ms. Shreya Ramnarayan,
Present.
Ms. Samaya Ramcharan,
Present.
Mr. Santino Surusentono,
Present.
Ms. Zariah Burnett,
Present.
Ms. Serena Bahadur, Ms. Aisha Mendonca,
Present.
Ms. Juliana Fernandez,
Present.
Mr. Raheem Rasul,
Present.
Ms. Flavia Joseph,
Present.
Mr. Ezekiel Narain,
Present.
Mr. Ronson Hart,
Present.
Ms. Adelcia Solomon,
Present.
Ms. Michaela Reed, Ms. Yara Hernandez, Mr. Jaquel White, Mr. Tafawa Adridge, Ms. Christiana Gill, Mr. Mohammed Hussein. Honorable members, my first duty is in accordance with Standing Order Number 2 of the Standing Orders of the Youth Parliament of Guyana, to elect a person to be the Speaker of the Assembly, and I accordingly invite nominations. The floor is open. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Honorable Minister. Are there any other nominations for this position of Speaker? There being no other nominations, I therefore declare Ms. Kira Hurry duly elected Speaker of the Junior category of the Assembly of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament of Guyana. I invite Ms. Hurry to come forward and take the oath.
I, Kira Hari, do hereby solemnly declare that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the people of Guyana, that I will faithfully execute the office of member of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament without fear or favor, affection, or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of the Cooperative of Guyana. Thank you. Honorable members, you may be seated. Honorable members, the oath will now be administered to members of the House by the Clerk of the Assembly. In order to save time, the clerk will invite all honorable members to take their oath at the same time. Upon this invitation, you will stand, hold the religious book in your right hand. If you so wish, read your oath form, then sit and sign the form. Thank you.
I invite members to make and subscribe the oath. Two, three.
I do hereby solemnly declare that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the people of Guyana, that I will faithfully execute the office of member of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
You may sit and sign.
I invite the clerk to read the prayers. All rise.
Almighty God, we who are here gathered together do most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, thine aid and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the president, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead that all the people of this fair land may enter into that state of brotherhood and unity where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action.
Honorable members, please be seated.
Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, with us today are former members of the National Assembly, Dr. Tandika Smith and Mr. Devon Sears, and Chief Executive Officer. Honorable members, my apologies for the interruption. Honorable members, with us today are former members of the National Assembly, Minister Joseph Hamilton, Mr. Devon Sears, and Chief Executive Officer of Camille's Academy, Dr. Camille Duki Gurak, who will serve as judges of the junior category of this year's Youth Parliament. There will be two best speakers adjudged, one from the government and one from the opposition. Honorable members, we will now take the suspension to welcome the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly.
Honorable member, Madam Speaker, and Mr. Speaker. National Assembly.
The sitting is resumed. You may be seated. Your Honor, the Speaker, Mansour Nadir, it is with great honor that I welcome you on behalf of the members of the junior category of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament. Your presence today is a powerful testament to your unwavering commitment to youth development and inclusivity. Honorable Speaker, I once again welcome you and invite you to address the junior category participants of the 10th Annual Youth Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Joseph Hamilton, Minister of Labor, our judges, distinguished parliamentarians, staff, invitees. Good morning. Today is an honor for me to stand and address you at this 10th Annual Youth Parliament for our junior category. And as I sat in the Speaker's office, having done this so many times, I asked myself, what can I say to our young youth parliamentarians? And it hit me like a good Muhammad Ali or Tyson punch to the head. And the issue is, how do we get to the National Assembly? What is the system and the process? And why do we do this? It's all about democracy and freedom. Freedom in a society where you can express your views, where you can associate with whoever you want without fear, and more particularly, the opportunity to stand for and to elect persons to pass laws, to execute programs, and to judge people fairly based on principles. It's about democracy. Getting here, it's not through a contest of debates. Coming into the National Assembly as representatives of people, it's part of a process where the will of the people governs the people. So a little history. over 800 years ago, you had the king making decrees, and this mace was used to enforce it. The sergeant at arms would walk with the town criers, who would open a scroll and read, "Heary, heary, heary. The king now declares that no one shall wear a nose ring in my kingdom." And that's the law. And if you object, the sergeant, this is no joke, young man, would swing that mace, hit your head off. Yes. That was the brutality of kings and dictatorships. And we had a long struggle in Guyana against a dictatorship. A long struggle. Minister Hamilton and I have shared that journey. Share that journey. When, if you spoke anything against the president, you could be locked up. When we banned flour and sardine, chickpeas, or chana, it was an offense. So what we enjoy today in Guyana has come through decades of fight against a dictatorship. And that was not so long ago. What we have today in Guyana, more than half the world do not have. Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, they don't have it. They don't have the opportunity to voice their concerns, associate with who they want, and to stand for and elect people to represent them. So this is a cherished society which we have in Guyana. And in a few years' time, at the next general elections, most of you will be voting. It's not just casting a vote, but understanding the process and the system in which that process operates. So this is not just about emerging as a best speaker in a regional debating competition. To get there, you had to listen to your elders. You had to be respectful. You had to listen to the views of your team members as you prepared. You had to have a democracy. It wasn't just about shouting. It wasn't just about good looks. It was a process. And many times we lose sight of that process. And most often, we lose sight of the society, the freedom which we have. So, as you debate today, pay respect to the other views. On your side, it takes a big person to give in so that consensus can be reached. I'll share a story I had with my grandson. A minibus driver knocked him on the left side of the vehicle, undertaking it's called. And my grandson has a big name. So he was right and he has might. But you have this minibus driver, looks like 60 years old. He probably was 45. And I allowed my grandson to deal with the matter at the police station, and the police was going to charge the other guy. And my grandson said to him, to the police, no, leave him. We'll fix our car. And that was one of the proudest moments of my life. Because here you had a young man who had right on his side, had might on his side, but who had mercy for somebody. Today, let's live our democracy in humility and mercy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are beyond grateful that you took the time to share very insightful and encouraging words with us, the youth. The Assembly is now suspended. Honorable members. Honorable members, the sitting is resumed. You may be seated. Mr. Clerk.
Presentation of petitions, presentations of papers and reports, reports from committees, oral questions without notice, questions on notice, statements by ministers including policy statements, personal explanations, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, motions relating to the business or sittings of the Assembly and moved by a minister, introduction of bills, public business, government's business, motions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Honorable members, the first motion stands in the name of the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. The Honorable Tafawa Aldridge, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of this youth parliament, I rise today to move the motion standing in my name, which seeks to discuss the amendment of the Juvenile Justice Act to formally incorporate principles and practices of restorative justice for first-time juvenile offenders found guilty under the Act. One that tells every first-time nonviolent offender, we see your potential, not just your mistake. Madam Speaker, across the length and breadth of Guyana, too many of our young people who are vulnerable, impoverished, and unheard are caught in a cycle of arrest, detention, and reoffending. Between 2011 and 2014, UNICEF's findings reported by the Guyana Times show that over 70% of youth at the Juvenile Holding Center were boys, charged mainly with wandering, while girls were often charged with wandering, a reflection rooted in vulnerability, not violence. In 2018, the Rights of the Child Commission revealed that 70% of youths at the New Opportunity Corps were incarcerated for acts no longer even considered crimes under the Juvenile Justice Act. These are not hardened criminals. They are our sons and daughters deserving of a chance to rebuild their futures. Madam Speaker, while under the law, no juvenile is sentenced to imprisonment and no finding of guilt is recorded as a conviction, that does not erase the damage, the stigma, the disruption to education, and the lasting social consequences that will follow them after release. So I ask this House, if a single mistake at 16 can derail a young person's future, what does that say about the kind of justice we practice? Is it justice to punish without a chance to reform? The answer lies in restorative justice, defined by the Restorative Justice Council as a structured process that brings offenders, victims, and communities to address harm, repair relationships, and ensure accountability. With this system, Madam Speaker, we are seeking to repair the harm done by emphasizing the shared responsibility, human dignity, and the reintegration of both victim and first-time offender in society. In 2018, further stakeholder consultation supported by UNICEF alongside the Rights of the Child Commission underscored that youth offenders are often overwhelmingly exposed to poverty, abuse, neglect, and lack of opportunity. Yet, our justice system was punishing symptoms, not addressing root causes. In response, in 2019, the then government, now opposition, brought forward Bill number 11 of 2019 titled the Restorative Justice Bill, acknowledging that justice must go beyond punishment. However, it was this government in 2022 that made that vision a reality by passing the Restorative Justice Act, training over 200 stakeholders and integrating restorative practices into the justice system. It is under Article 4 of the Act that restorative justice is formally recognized as a distinct lawful process within our criminal justice system. This means it is not a supplement to justice, it is justice. But, Madam Speaker, The work is not done. Judges are still not required to consider restorative justice before sentencing. A 16-year-old first-time offender can still be sent to a facility without ever being assessed for a restorative part. This motion calls for that gap to be closed. We are calling for a national discussion amendment to the Juvenile Offenders Act to formally incorporate restorative justice as a prerequisite for sentencing first-time non-violent juvenile offenders. We are calling for the establishment of restorative justice committees in every region. I repeat, in every region. Staffed with trained facilitators, counselors, probation officers, and community leaders. We are calling for strong partnerships with schools, religious groups, and NGOs so that our young people are surrounded with real support and not a cycle of incarceration, but uplifted by a system of restoration, responsibility, and support. And yes, Madam Speaker, we are also calling for an overhaul of custodial institutions like the New Opportunity Corps, because detention should not just confine, it must guide. This motion ensures that Guyana does not just legislate restorative justice, it institutionalizes it, not in theory, but in practice for every youth who deserves a second chance. Madam Speaker, if nothing else is heard today, let this be. Our children are crying out, not for pity, but for a chance to be more than their worst nightmare. If we fail to act, we are not just punishing them, we are abandoning them. I lay this motion before the House with all the hope I have left for every forgotten child. Let us not forget them. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. The motion is proposed. Honorable Lillian Thomas, Shadow Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance and Opposition Chief Whip, you may take the floor.
Yeah, use the other one.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Without a doubt, supporting and reforming our youth with words necessary cause. However, before any program can work, there must be a strong foundation. This motion speaks about rehabilitation and reintegration, but offers no evidence that infrastructure exists to support it. Many rural and hinterland communities in Guyana still lack basic facilities, youth centers, courtrooms, and counseling rooms, and secure rehabilitation. According to the 2020 Ministry of Communities report, it was highlighted that over 60% of hinterland region, including region 8 and 9, is lacked of equipped centers, access to rehabilitation services is virtually non-existent. If we do not first lay necessary groundwork, word will mean little without action. Parliament should not approve this motion, but motion by building it on a shaky foundation. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, even if we build facilities tomorrow, who would run them? Guyana faces a serious shortage of qualified professionals such as psychologists, counselors, and youth officers. Leaving out urban areas, most professionals are concentrated in urban areas like Georgetown and New Amsterdam, leaving rural communities without access, specialized, and support this motion demands. This was demonstrated in the 2020 Ministry of Health workforce, which research reveals that Guyana has fewer than 35 licensed clinical psychologists, with the vast majority working in Georgetown. To put this in perspective, the World Health Organization, WHO, recommends at least one psychologist per 10,000 people. A standard that Guyana falls surely meeting clear strategy to train and retain these professionals, especially in remote areas. And this motion cannot meet its goal. Another point that must be noted, Madam Speaker, the best design policy fails without proper financial plan. Implementing this motion will require significant government spending, building, upgrading facilities, creating training programs, and staffing them with qualified professionals. Yet motion provides no funding model, no budget estimate, no timelines, and no accountability mechanism. History has shown us the danger by passing underfunded mandates. In 2019, the National Drug Rehabilitation Program was launched with much fanfare, but with a secure funding, leading to delayed construction, staff shortage, and incomplete service. We cannot repeat the same mistake here. Without clarity on it, it will be spent. The motion risks becoming another stalled government project. Let me be clear. My objection is not the principle of youth rehabilitation, but the motion is lack of reliance. If the government is serious about the rehabilitation and integration, one, they must invest in infrastructure first by building and equipping youth centers, courtrooms, and counseling rooms, and secure rehabilitation facilities across all regions. Two, delay funding plan include budget allocation, timelines, and monitoring mechanisms to ensure proper use of resources. Madam Speaker, passing this motion
Honorable member, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This motion in its current state would be like constructing a building without proper foundation. We owe it to the youth to ensure any rehabilitation program is well planned, proper fund, and staffed with qualified personnel. The government must come back to this House with a motion that addresses these critical issues. Infrastructure, personnel, and funding. Only then can we see results. Until that happens, I cannot fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Jakeel White, Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance and Government Chief Whip. You may take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of this honorable House, good morning. I rise in full support of this motion. We can no longer afford a justice system rooted only in punishment that cannot serve a nation striving to foster one people in one nation with one destiny. In a world fractured by conflict and inequality, restorative justice offers a principled and practical path, one that holds first-time offenders accountable while giving them the structure to repair, to grow, and to return as contributing members of society. Madam Speaker, the approach we are advancing through restorative justice is not only about healing. It's a forward-thinking response to real challenges in our justice system. Permanent Secretary Adele Clark noted in an October 2024 Guyana Chronicles article, the foundation was laid for restorative justice practices to become an alternative to custodial sentencing for minor offenses in our justice system. This is not theory, it is policy in action. The institutionalization of restorative justice is already well underway, led by the Attorney Generals and the Ministry of Legal Affairs, who have been working diligently to embed this approach across our legal framework. This is why this amendment must now follow. Madam Speaker, The Juvenile Justice Act laid the groundwork, and since then we've seen real steps taken. As the Guyana Chronicles in a May 14th, 2025 article reported, this government has already established restorative justice offices in regions 3, 4, 5, and 10, with plans to extend to regions 1, 2, 6, 7, and 9, bringing this institution within reach of every youth. Through programs like Drive, Guyana has already begun steering young people away from punishment and toward healing. Healing through rehabilitation, healing through counseling, and healing through reintegration. Madam Speaker, Abraham Lincoln once said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." I say this to stress that the success of restorative justice depends on our unity. Not asking the members to blindly agree, but look at the facts. A 2013 United Nations report titled "The Use and Application of Restorative Justice, a Practitioner's Guide" shows that restorative justice programs reduce recidivism by 20 to 30% compared to punitive systems. This isn't theory, it is proven. In Jamaica, since the Child Diversion Act of 2018, youth reoffending has dropped by 30% in some areas. The UNODC and Caribbean Development Bank now recognize Jamaica's program as a regional model. And right here in Guyana, the Department of Public Information reports the lowest recidivism rate in Guyana, standing just at 14%. Yet, Madam Speaker, instead of building on this, we're arguing about trivial things online. Oh, the most important of things, chicken curry versus curry chicken, while you are being underserved in this nation. The evidence is in. The model exists. Madam Speaker, the time for action is not coming. It is now. And if I'm to go further, I must remind the members of this House that Region 4 is not the entirety of Guyana. A child in Madia or Port Kaituma does not receive the same second chance as a child in the capital. But through this motion, restorative justice committees will be established in every region, coordinating facilitators.
Minister, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Probation officers, counselors, and community partners to ensure equal region-specific support for all youth across Guyana. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, must remind this honorable House, when Guyana signed the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, we didn't just ink a document, we made a sacred promise to our youth. Today, with the passing of this motion, we will transform that promise into action, declaring to the world that Guyana doesn't just follow human rights. We champion them. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Jekyll White. I will now call upon the Honorable Member Michael Brutus, Shadow Minister of Human Services and Social Security.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pointedly, the government's motion naively assumes that all juvenile offenders possess the mental and emotional capacity to genuinely engage in restorative justice processes. This is a dangerously simplistic view that ignores the harsh realities many of these youths face: trauma, unstable family environments, low education levels, as well as untreated mental health issues such as PTSD. According to the National Center for Mental Health and Juvenile Justice in 2019, up to 90% of youth offenders have experienced at least one traumatic event, which often leads to difficulties with emotional regulation and decision-making, skills that are essential for restorative justice. This inadvertently proves that these young offenders are grappling with complex psychological and emotional development challenges. Madam Speaker, are we to believe that a 14-year-old burdened by neglect or abuse can suddenly perform deep reflection and meaningful accountability in a system that requires emotional maturity that they simply do not have? This proposal reeks of idealistic arrogance, as if a one-size-fits-all restorative justice formula can magically fix what years of systemic neglect have broken. Without adequate mental health support and tailored interventions, restorative justice risks becoming ineffective or even harmful. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the government's motion posits that community entities, from schools to religious institutions, will actively contribute to restorative justice. This bold initiative, though noble, grapples with the assumption, the unrealistic assumption, that restorative justice can be implemented in these communities simply by invoking a sense of community as a healing unit, when in reality, many communities in Guyana, particularly where these crimes occur, are already fractured by ethnic divides, politics, and socioeconomic inequalities. For reference, Indo-Guyanese communities as against Afro-Guyanese communities have strong differing preferences in political parties, thus making trust and cooperation fragile outside of election cycles. Dr. Elena Fidian Kazmi, professor at University College London, in her 2022 article in the International Journal of Conflict and Violence, argues, and I quote, "Without broader reconciliation efforts, community-led justice can fail or worsen tensions. These torn communities cannot be entrusted with the right to mend offender-victim relationships without fixing their own differences first. Without addressing the setbacks in these communities, we risk being pulled into a tug of war between expectations and reality. I therefore call upon the government to implement nationwide community readiness assessments, followed by targeted public education campaigns and conflict resolution training to ensure communities are genuinely ready to support restorative justice. Only then can we ensure that this proposal, however well-intentioned, will not collapse under the weight of its own idealism." With that same breath, Madam Speaker, I must divulge further. This motion stands for the rehabilitation and reintegration of the offender, an aim that I do not oppose, but it fails to mention the victim in even an infinitesimal capacity. On the surface, this motion seems instrumentally efficacious, but speaks too keenly on offender healing and is silent on the victim. In our villages and towns, women, the elderly, and small business owners are left to pick up the pieces themselves. Is this genuine justice or a spectacle for public consumption? True justice must see both the broken glass and who dropped it.
Honorable member, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 2021 review by the National Institute of Justice found that while 85% of victims reported satisfaction with restorative justice processes, this was directly linked to the presence of trained facilitators and victim support services. It is therefore behoved upon the government to ensure stringent mechanisms are put in place, such as coordination with the Ministry of Legal Affairs to train facilitators, social workers, and probation officers in trauma-informed approaches that prioritizes victim welfare and consent. Madam Speaker, esteemed members of this House, as we stand at the crossroads, we must not allow good intentions to outpace good governance. Restorative justice without structure is not justice. It is a gamble, and Guyana's youth, victims, and communities are not chips to be played. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. I will now call upon the Honorary Sumaya Ramcharan, Minister of Human Services and Social Security.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members. Davis, an American political activist and scholar, once said, and I quote, "Prisons do not disappear social problems. They disappear people," end of quote. This truth lies at the heart of why I rise today in strong support to discuss the amendment of the Juvenile Offenders Act to embed the principles and practices of restorative justice for first-time non-violent juvenile offenders. Madam Speaker, this governance firmly believes that our youth are our greatest investment. This means holding them accountable for guiding them. Stability, poverty, exposure to violence, and address mental health struggles. For you to straight as a government that cares. We are answering those cries with compassion and making restorative justice the first step for first-time offenders. Detention and reintegration becomes guarantees, not afterthoughts. Madam Speaker, the foundation is already justice. The first article. Leaders in Region 1 participated in a sensitization session led by the Attorney General and Director of the Restorative Justice Center, exploring victim-offender community approaches. Their response was one of genuine enthusiasm, with Tushao Hudson responding, and I quote, "You could send them to prison, but the issue would still be there. So the question is, how can we address these crimes? How can we address it to avoid these crimes from reoccurring?" End quote. Madam Speaker, rehabilitation is incomplete without reintegration. We simply cannot teach the children a skill in custodial facilities and hope for the best. A young person living in detention must have access to counseling, mentorship, skills training, and employment opportunities in every region. And don't even think for a second that we could just give them some slap. That's work and call it charge. Reintegration must be intentional. In fact, research from the Office of Justice Programs show that 40% to 90% of youth leaving secure care often face diagnosable mental disorders. For this vulnerability, furthermore, cognitive behavioral therapy programs have reduced juvenile recidivism by 12% to 25%, according to Legal Service India. Now consider the toll this takes on the nation's children. The 2019 United Nations Global Study on Children Deprived of Liberty found that detained children are 6 times more likely to develop depression, anxiety, with many reporting severe emotional distress due to separation from family. Madam Speaker, if this is true for all detained children, the harm is even greater for first-time offenders who through supportive, restorative interventions. Exactly why we are advocating for the amendment of the juvenile offenders for our justice system protect our young people from preventable harm humane and effective.
Honorable Minister, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let the speech not be remembered for words, but the moment remembered for action. Let us move toward a justice system that heals duty to protect, to empower, and to restore. If not now, when? If not us, who? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for those remarks. We now turn to the Honorary Christina Gill, the Vice President.
Madam Speaker, Honorable Member of Parliament, I rise with conviction to support this motion. For today, we decide whether Guyana's justice system will continue recycling offenders or become an engine of redemption. As we consider this critical issue, let us remember the word of Nelson Mandela. And I quote, the true character of a society is revealed on how it treats its children. End of quote. This is about more than reform. This is about reaffirming our value, fulfill our constitutional responsibility, and align our justice system with the highest ideal of dignity, fairness, and opportunity. Madam Speaker, my colleague was right in saying our youth are our greatest investment, and it is our responsibility to ensure they have the support, resource needed to thrive. Article 38B of the Constitution of Guyana guarantees that the best interest of the children shall be the primary consideration of matters concerning children. Yet, too often, young people, particularly young offenders, who already made mistakes are funneled into a system that punishes rather than rehabilitates, effectively turning missteps into long life burdens. Madam Speaker, by prioritizing rehabilitation over punishment, we are not being lenient. We are being visionary. We are giving our young people the chance to learn, grow, and reintegrate, not as criminals, but as contributors to our nation. And the data supports us. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, countries that prioritize rehabilitation over incarceration constantly achieve lower recidivism. Northwest youth recidivism sit below 20%. Germany under 30% with vocational support. By palliative system fails spectacularly with the United States, producing a 76.6 youth of reoffending rate within 3 years. According to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquent Prevention, 2020, these numbers don't lie. Present manufacture repeated offenders. Meanwhile, the European Journal of Criminology in 2021 confirmed rehabilitation cut crime by addressing the root causes. The choice is clear. Will we recycle broken lives or rebuild them? Into context, Madam Speaker, Guyana has made notable progress in reducing youth recidivism, reoccurring a rate of just 14%. According to the Ministry of Home Affairs 2022 report, one of the lowest in the region. A key contributor to this is the New Opportunity Corps, which offers skill training and mentorship to young offenders. However, the 2022 annual report of the New Opportunity Corps highlights critical limitations, including insufficient geographical reach, outdated institution, and limited staff capacity. These restrict its ability to support vulnerable youths, especially in rural and hinterland regions. As highlighted in the 2019 Guyana Chronicle article titled Guyana for Juveniles. Justice for Juveniles. Mr. Munter, a child protection officer, said, and I quote, I don't believe the children...
Vice President,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't believe the children who come here are difficult children. I believe they are the product of difficult circumstances. End of quote. Guided by this belief, the government will overhelp NOC by upgrading facilities, training staff, and partner with the community by prioritizing, and partner with the community and private sector organization. Our goal is to create a more accessible, modern, effective rehabilitation system for all young people. So I urge every member to support this motion, not just as a legislative act, but as a solemn commitment to the youth of Guyana and to the vision of a nation that is mature, inclusive, and strong. Together, let's build a justice system that reflects the very best of who we are and all we hope Guyana can become. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice President. I will now call upon Ms. Janae Anthony, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, Department of International Cooperation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Everyone talks about giving young people a second chance. Well, I will be real. A second chance does not mean turning a blind eye and say, there's no big deal. If we start brushing off every offense without proper consequences, we're basically telling people the life like a rubber band. No justice, Madam Speaker. That is a dangerous precedent. Guyana's reputation, both at home and abroad, depends on a justice system that is fair, firm, showing compassion, yes, but not softness. Firstly, Guyana is a proud signatory to international treaties such as the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child. These agreements stress the importance of justice alongside rehabilitation, automatically diverting juvenile offenders from custodial sentences. As this motion progresses, could be seen by our international partner as weakening our justice system. This risks our diplomatic trust, cooperation agreements, and even foreign investment relationships the Ministry of Foreign Affairs worked tirelessly to protect. Secondly, this government is pushing for a system we are not ready to handle. We lack the infrastructure, trained personnel, and monitoring system to implement restorative justice on a national scale. Jamaica's failed attempts due to restored charges should have served as a warning. Rolling out a system without preparation is not reform, it is recklessness, and it will damage public trust in our legal institutions. Madam Speaker, we must protect the safety and well-being of the victims and society. This motion focuses on offenders, but neglects victims. We have seen the dangers before, most notably in Georgetown in 2023, when juveniles given alternative sentences without proper supervision reoffended repeatedly. Government proposal repeating that mistake and putting community in harm's way. With that being said, with clear national guidelines, restorative justice will be applied inconsistently. This open the doors for bias, favoritism, and political interference. The justice system must be predictable and impartial. Undermine equality before the law. However, juvenile offenders often come as disadvantaged background, which demands compassion, but compassion with proper support system is meaningless. True rehabilitation requires education, counseling, and skills training, none of which the government has adequately provided for. Without these, we are not integrating young people into society. We are society of crime. Madam Speaker, I ask the government, why rush? Why push a policy that risks our safety, our justice system, and our international standing before we have the means to make it work? Second chances matter, but they must be earned and supported by a system that is ready. This motion asks us to leap before we build the bridge. Instead of rushing to implement it, we should first invest in training, infrastructure, community awareness, and strict policy framework. Madam Speaker, I respectfully call on this honorable House to withhold its support for the government's motion. Let us not trade justful for wishful thinking. Guyana deserves a system that is fair, firm, and a fully prepared system that protects victims, rehabilitates offenders, and respect both at home and abroad. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you.
I will now call on the Honorable Sierra Hernandez, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of this honorable House. Good morning. In a society once fractured by conflict, where the authority of law has too often faltered, we are called not merely to enforce justice, but to reimagine it. Restorative justice stands as a transformative response, one that rebuilds shared values, restores community trust, and evaluates institutions through transparency and accountability. I rise today in unaware supporting of this motion, one that advances rehabilitation for our young offenders and position Guyana as a regional and global leader in intelligent, humane, and future-focused justice for reform. Madam Speaker, Nobel Peace Prize laureate Desmond Tutu once said, "There is no future without forgiveness." The United Nations Standard Minimum Rules, the administrative of juvenile justice. The Beijing rules set a global benchmark for juvenile justice, mandating systems that prioritize the child's well-being, proportionate response, and rehabilitation over punishment. Rule 5, one demands processes that uphold dignity, while Rule 17 calls for reintegration, ensuring young people emerge as constructive members of society. Guyana, as a signatory, bears both a legal and moral duty to embed these principles in its laws. Supporting this motion isn't just an option, it's an obligation to meet international justice standards and safeguard our youth's future. By aligning our laws with these rules, we don't just comply, we
Speaker, point of order.
defines our commitment to justice, dignity.
On what grounds, Honorable Minister?
Number 28, rules for members not speaking. D, a member present in the assembly during the debate shall otherwise conduct him or herself in a fair and proper manner.
Please identify the member not conducting themselves in a fit or proper manner.
Ciara Henderes, Hernandez.
No.
Honorable member, I did not recognize that. Continue, honorable member.
Let this be the standard that defines our commitment to justice, dignity, and progress. From the Rupununi to the quarantine, we are one people with one destiny. And if we truly believe in one Guyana, then we must fight for one justice system. One that lifts up our youth instead of locking them away. The world is watching. We will set an example. Madam Speaker, if passed this motion, position Guyana as one of the very first country in the world and possibly the very first to make a restorative justice a mandatory precondition for all foreign juvenile offenders. While more developed nations like New Zealand and Belgium have embedded restorative justice into their youth justice system, its application remains optional, dependent on judicial prosecution decision. In New Zealand, for example, family group conferences are widely used but are considered one under certain legal conditions. Similarly, Belgium encouraged diversion through restorative
Honorable Minister, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. But the judicial review. With this motion, Guyana enhanced its standing in upcoming UN Universal Periodic Reviews and reinforces our voice in CARICOM and the Commonwealth as a leader in restorative, right-based governance. This signals to the world that Guyana leads not rhetoric, but with reform. Madam Speaker, our current justice system is largely punitive, focusing on laws who broke them and how best to punish the offender. Restorative justice, by contrast, sets the lens towards healing, accountability, and reintegration. It asks who was harmed, what do they need to heal, and who is responsible for making it right. To conclude, Madam Speaker, we are advocating for a system where justice does not begin and end in a courtroom, but lives in our community, our schools, our Global South is no longer just demanding a seat at the table. We are redesigning. Where you see developing nation, we show you developing conscience. Where you expect hesitation, we deliver revolution. Mark my words. A decade from now, when our country scrambles, when other countries scramble to catch up to our model, when this legislative act is sitting international legal forum and academic literature as a pioneering model in colonial justice leadership, they will try to come back to this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now call upon the Honorary Varuni Deodat, Shadow Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me begin by acknowledging the spirit of this motion. At its core, it seeks to transform how we youths who have gone astray, not with punishing, but with healing. That is noble, that is necessary. However, this motion carries certain consequences that we simply cannot disregard. Madam Speaker, there is no denying that the restorative justice show a modern, compassionate shift on how we address youth offending. In fact, according to an article by Kaitor News titled "Government Expands Restorative Justice Network with New Regional Offices," on May 14, 2025, the Ministry of Legal Affairs has made a commendable effort in establishing regional restorative justice office in regions 3, 4, 5, and 10, and plans to implement others by August 2025. The question being failed to ask, or what the government fails to answer, is how do we know this is working? Where is the transparency? Where is the data? Restorative justice is not just a checked box, but a deep human process that involves trauma, misconduct, and social stigma. As it stands, there is no public data for any restorative justice offices. There is no reporting system that tracks youth participation or communities with successful supported integration. Madam Speaker, if the government is calling for a nationwide amendment of the Juvenile Justice Act, we must first ensure that the infrastructure supporting this model is transparent and accountable. Otherwise, we risk introducing a justice model that is idealistic in theory but ineffective in practice. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, I have mentioned that the restorative justice is a process that involves trauma. Imagine being forced in a room with your offender and the flashback starts. All the emotional trauma starts replaying over and over again. This is ultimately what happens when we make restorative justice mandatory. These are not just my words. The American Psychiatric Association noted that the use of restorative justice principles can cause crime victims to feel post-traumatic stress when being faced with their offender. For this reason, persons may be unwilling to participate in restorative justice, as they may be fearful of being faced with their offender. So why must we force them to do so? Is this not a justifiable reason as to why participating in restorative justice should not be mandatory? In the book, Restorative Justice, an Overview, Tony Marshall emphasizes that the restorative justice is centrally concerned with the restoration of the offender to a law-abiding life and restoration of the damage caused by the crime to the community. Similarly, Professor Albert Fiedo noted that the defenders of the restorative justice would argue that it places emphasis on healing relationships that has been broken by conflict or crime. However, there is no guarantee that the relationship between the victims and offender will be restored. This raises the question, why should we invest our time, resources, and funding on an initiative that has no guarantee outcome? In conclusion, based on the consequences outlined, restorative justice should remain a voluntary system in which
Remember,
both
1 minute
parties,
remaining.
thank you, Madam Speaker, in which both parties have free will to participate or not, considering the impact it may have on the victim's well-being. Thank you.
Honorable members, might I remind you to act with maturity, grace, and humility within the House. I may now call upon the Honorable Tafawa Adridge, Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If there was ever a day for this House to show who we are, it was today. And yet, what did we witness? The opposition handed the chance to fight for our youth, chose instead to fight for the chains that hold them down. They dressed it up as principle. But Madam Speaker, let us call it what it is. Fear. Fear of change. Fear of progress. Fear of letting the very group they seemingly care about, vulnerable, breed. Madam Speaker, I asked the question, did the opposition read the motion? In this motion, restorative justice is defined as a structured process. Let me make it clear, a structured process that brings victims and communities together to address harm and repair relationships. Madam Speaker, for far too long, Guyana has been following. It is time we get up and lead our Caribbean neighbors. Madam Speaker, the member stated that countries who have signed the treaty, is she stating that those are the countries, our Caribbean neighbors, have thrown their justice system in the bin? The opposition clearly is disorganized and don't have a structure. But let me be clear, Madam Speaker. We are calling for a national discussion, not the passing. It emphasizes the government's commitment to hear from its people. Madam Speaker, they have been asking for the proof. Let me give you the receipts. Over 70%. Hold on, let me get it right, because we got to set the record straight today. The member referenced in her speech Jamaica. The data supports us. According to United Nations Office of Drug and Crimes, countries that prioritize rehabilitation over incarceration consistently achieve lower recidivism. Norway's youth recidivism sits below 20%. Germany's under 30%. So if you didn't know, well, now you know. I urge the opposition to support this motion. Get it right. Stand behind our young people for one people, one nation, and one destiny. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That concludes the debates on the motion. I now put to the question. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Division was called. Division, Mr. Clerk. You ready? Look at that in here. Look.
Ms. Diona Stanislaus. Ms. Diona Stanislaus.
Oh.
Ms. Serena Scott.
No.
Mr. Abhijit Prasad,
No.
Ms. LaShawn Samuels,
No.
Mr. Michael Brutus, Mr. Timothy Mahabir,
No.
Ms. Catherine Abraham,
No.
Mr. Sebastian Khan,
No.
Ms. Anaya Bennett,
No.
Ms. Emily Bisnoff,
No.
Mr. Sachin Prasad,
No.
Mr. Shiv Bisimber, Miss Princess Stephen, Mr. Javante Adams, Miss Sapna Prasad, Miss Janae Anthony, Miss Lillian Thomas, Miss Vernie Diodat, Miss Julia Tusiram, Miss Akila Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Bharat Dasrat,
Yes.
Miss Arima Drayton,
Yes.
Miss Shreya Ramnarayan,
Yes.
Miss Samaya Ramcharan, Mr. Santino Surusentono,
Yes.
Miss Zariah Burnett,
I.
Miss Serena Bahadur, Miss Aisha Mendonca,
Yes.
Miss Juliana Fernandez,
Yes.
Mr. Rahim Rasul,
Yes.
Miss Flavia Joseph,
Yes.
Mr. Ezekiel Narain,
Yes.
Mr. Ronson Hart,
Yes.
Miss Adelcia Solomon,
Yes.
Miss Michaela Reed,
Yes.
Miss Ciara Hernandez, Mr. Jaquel White,
Yes.
Mr. Tafawa Adridge, Miss Christiana Gill, Mr. Mohammed Hussein. Madam Speaker, 21 members voted in favor of the motion, 19 members voted against the motion, and 0 members abstained.
Honorable members, the motion is carried. Honorable members, the next motion stands in the name of the Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and the public service. Honorable Michaela Reed, you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, esteemed colleagues of this honorable House, it is with pride and purpose that I rise to move the motion standing in my name, the implementation of a digital finance framework. This motion is not merely about policy, it is about progress, efficiency, and the future of public accountability in Guyana. A Reuters article dated January 2025 titled, and I quote, "While output exports drove Guyana's economy to further 3.6% in 2024, end of quote, highlighted that Guyana is now one of the fastest growing economies in the world, fueled by transformative investments and unprecedented opportunity. Madam Speaker, as we stand at the threshold of this new economic era, we must ensure that such growth is sustained, strategically harnessed, and protected against inefficiencies. The digital finance framework we propose today is exactly what we need to seize every opportunity, strengthen our institutions, and build a resilient foundation for Guyana that is inclusive, future-ready, and globally competitive. Christine Lagarde, former managing director of the IMF, once said, and I quote, "Digital finance has the potential to empower billions of people by giving them access to financial services, boosting growth and reducing poverty." End of quote. That is the global vision. Today, Madam Speaker, we bring that vision home. According to the Bank of Guyana, first quarter 2023 report, mobile money usage in Guyana has soared significantly. The number of MMG accounts grew by 59.2% from 39,675 to 63,166, with the value of payments increasing 27.3% from 1.3 billion Guyana dollars to 1.6 billion Guyana dollars compared to March 2022. The number of merchants accepting MMG payments also expanded by 60.5%. MMG's e-wallet holdings rose from 550 million Guyana dollars to 700 million Guyana dollars. Additionally, electronic Visa switch transactions climbed 57.2% in value, moving from 1.5 million Guyana dollars to 1.66 million dollars. Increase in mobile money penetration and adoption of digital financial services, a trend directly that supports the call for a digital finance framework, as citizens are already embracing cashless solutions. Madam Speaker, we have global examples to learn from. Like Guyana, Ghana has experienced significant growth in their economy due to natural resources like gold mining, cocoa production, and more recently, oil discoveries. As a result, the government introduced policies that expanded mobile money access, targeted underserved populations, and built public trust through education. According to the Strategic Impact Advisor, June 23rd, 2025, and I quote, in 2019, the World Bank acknowledged Ghana as the fastest growing mobile money market in Africa. End of quote. If Ghana could achieve this transformation, then Guyana, with our momentum, our vision, rise to equal or even greater. This transformation is already underway. A recent Starbrook News article highlighted the growing use of platforms like MMG, especially in rural areas among young professionals. Where people are ready, but readiness alone is not enough. Certain steps must be in place before full adoption. That is why, as our Be It Resolved clause states, and I quote, be it resolved that this youth parliament supports the implementation of a digital finance system. End of quote. The key words here, Speaker.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The key words here, Madam Speaker, are phased implementation. We are not sending the text before buying the data. No, Madam Speaker, we will not roll this out overnight. It will be gradual, strategic, and deliberate. With this framework, Guyana can become the first Caribbean country to fully embrace inclusive and digitally driven financial ecosystems. We have the chance to be the digital finance capital of the Caribbean. Oh, Madam Speaker, Honorable House, to support this motion, let us move forward with confidence. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now call upon the Honorable Catherine Abraham, Shadow Minister of Tourism, Industry, and Commerce.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A country that lives by the river should never burn its bridge. Today, we are being asked by this motion to cheer on a digital finance framework that will progressively reduce cash in the name of inclusion, efficiency, transparency, and regional alignment. The whereas clause promise much that digital finance will foster growth and accountability, that a shift from cash will fight corruption, that we are already aligned with regional and international best practice on cybersecurity and AML, and that Guyana's digital adoption and mobile use, boasted in one breath as 52%, prove we are ready. However, Madam Speaker, As the saying goes, measure twice, cut once. The heart of Guyana tourism, our golden child, beats in interior, not just on Main Street. Therefore, if we pull cash away before the digital rails are dependable, where the tourist actually travels, we will be like the man who hangs his basket higher than he can reach. First, a truth as old as the savannah, not everything that glitters is gold. That much tot 52% headline is slippery. The U.S. International Trade Administration Country Guide put intent penetration around 52% in 2024. Yet by clearly 2025, data reporter estimate 81.7%, same Guyana. Wildly different figures. If we cannot even reconcile the basic denominator, should we beg national payment policy to one shiny number? Moving on, let us follow the product itself. Tourism is not a hotel mall. Tourism is sky tour, Iwokrama, the Rupununi. Even our own tourism page admits that 90% of people live on the coast. Living the interior as the true experience we sell to the world. This means payments must work in the interior every day, not just in Georgetown. Yes, the government have moved Heaven and LEO satellites to close gap. By November 29, 2024, phase 1 has reached 203 hinterland communities. By July 2025, officials claim 236 of 253 are online. Yet, almost is not always. Reliability is the coin of the rim for booking and card swipes, and a log at Riwa cannot bank on. Maybe network today. To summarize the core issues in the three connective points, first, readiness where tourism lives. Strong adoption where Anay, Karasabay, Madhya, even with new links, hotspots still face pitching. With visitors' arrivals up 15%, uptime must match demand. As with dinner guests, you don't shrink the table. You expand it before cutting cash. Second, content fairness. Inclusion rings hollowed in micro operation. Hear the burden when MBS dropped MMG mortgage payment over a fee hike. It proved fee matter. If a bank balks, how will a family-run ecological handle with POS charges? Limited card acceptance already risks stranded travelers and starved sail inland. Third, security. Guyana's cybersecurity rating is tier 4 progress, not maturity. The July 19, 2024 outage showed how one fault and halt flight and banks worldwide. Furthermore, let's talk about the region. Even countries with stronger networks are cautioned. For example, Jamaica Jamdex is still fine-tuning, and the Eastern Caribbean, Dcash, has to relaunch. If they aren't Russian, why would we? If our neighbors, many with strong network, are still turning the engine, we should not pretend we are already cruising at regional standards. Madam Speaker, the government will argue that arrivals are at record high, the airlift is up, and the MMG is modernizing. And that is true. We welcome ambition, but growth is not just about numbers. It is about readiness. Solid uptime in LATAM, fair mention, Surama, and cyber resilience from Camera. These are the benchmarks we must hit before reaching forward. Madam Speaker, we are not anti-digital. We are pro-tourism reality. The motion whereas clause may glow like the late afternoon sun, but sun on water can hide a deep current. Before we progressively reduce cash, let us ensure that every lodge in Riwa, craft table in Anay, and guide at Kaitor can accept payment today, tomorrow, and the next day, fairly and safely. Until then, this framework is like throwing the child's breath to catch a bird in the bush. Let us send it back for redrafting, anchored to hinterland reliability, merchant cost relief, and cybersecurity milestone. So we may have a digital finance framework worthy of destination Guyana, where our rivers truly meets the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will now call upon the Honorable Ziara Barnett, Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of this honorable House, good morning. As Telebrify, former Secretary General of the UNWTO reminds us, the future of tourism lies in innovation and sustainability, embracing new technologies to create a more inclusive and responsible travel experience. Today, I rise to contribute to a motion that offers a transformative opportunity for Guyana to embrace economic advancement through digital finance. This motion equips our economy to thrive across tourism, industry, and commerce. Madam Speaker, our tourism sector stands at a pivotal moment. According to an All Now article dated January 18th, 2024, Guyana welcomed over 319,000 visitors in 2023, marking a 10.7% increase from the previous year. Roughly 40% of our population, notably, nearly half of these tourists, 47%, came from the United States, with significant numbers from the Caribbean, 27%, 9% from Canada, and 6% from Europe. Guyana Times 2024. These regions widely use financial services such as mobile wallets and contactless payments. By implementing a comprehensive digital finance framework, we will create an environment where international visitors experience the same ease and convenience as they do at home. Aligning with global digital finance trends will enhance visitor satisfaction, encourage greater spending, and boost our local tourism businesses, making Guyana a more competitive and attractive Caribbean destination. This framework not only promotes but also enhances safety and security for visitors. Madam Speaker, even the U.S. Department of State, in its travel advisory published May 12, 2025, cautions travelers to exercise increased vigilance, particularly warning that, and I quote, visitors should be cautious when visiting banks or ATMs due to criminal activity and violence in Guyana. This highlights a serious concern. Tourists carrying or withdrawing physical cash which poses a major challenge for our tourism industry, because who wants to visit a country where they don't feel safe? Members of the opposition, with the digital finance framework we propose, such worries can become a thing of the past. Tourists will no longer need frequent visits to banks or ATMs because they can complete secure transactions directly from their phone with a simple tap. Isn't it time we provide our visitors with the peace of mind and convenience they deserve? This digital shift will not only enhance tourist safety, but also modernize our economy to meet international standards. The same digital framework that improves tourist experience also has the power to revolutionize our industries, driving efficiency and growth. Traditional banking is often underserved our small and medium enterprises, requiring extensive paperwork and physical visits to distant branches. Digital finance changes this. Mobile banking platforms and digital payments enables a rice farmer in Region 6 to receive payments instantly, a craftsperson in linen to access microloans within hours, and the shop owner in New Amsterdam to manage cash flow with real-time insights. Madam Speaker, in August 2021, Wallison Enterprise in Georgetown was hit. $38 million in cash gone in an instant. Fast forward to October 2024, a Lusignan businessman stripped of $50.16 million in cash. And it didn't end there. Madam Speaker, in April 2025, Vikash Enterprise was robbed of $600,000 in cash. Just 1 month later, $6 million vanished from supermarket in quarantine. Madam Speaker, I'm not no mathematician, but even I can tell you that's over $100 million stolen in less than 4 years. The problem is not just robberies. It's the massive amount of cash circulating in our economy, making businesses and citizens easy targets. This is why we must urgently shift to a secure and traceable digital finance system that reduces cash handling and protects
Honorable
bank
member,
codes.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And safeguards our nation's wealth. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, I have the responsibility to represent not only our vibrant business community, but also our growing tourism sector. This digital finance framework will make our country safer and more convenient for visitors, while empowering business of all sizes to operate more efficiently and securely. By supporting this motion, we take an important step towards a stronger and more inclusive that benefits every Guyanese and welcomes the world with open arms. This is the future I proudly stand for today. This is the future we must build together, and it is the future I proudly stand for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Members of the public, members of the gallery, I would like to kindly ask that you refrain from the use of flash photography within the House. In addition, members of the House, I ask that you refrain from walking within the aisles. Now, I will call upon the Honorable Arima Drayton, Minister of Local Government and Regional Development. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand boldly this morning as the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development in full support of this motion, which seeks to transition Guyana from a cash-dependent economy to a digitally financial ecosystem through the implementation of a comprehensive digital finance framework. Madam Speaker, such a framework will modernize local governance by enabling digitalized payments of tax, fees, and utility bills at both regional and municipal levels, bringing convenience and security to all citizens. In an economy growing as fast as ours, it is imperative that we, as members of the House, actively seek new avenues to foster sustainable development and improve the lives of the Guyanese people. For instance, Madam Speaker, according to the Guyana Times, the recent distribution of the $100,000 cash fund exposed glaring inefficiencies in our current cash-dependent system. In Region 4, teachers and public servants stood for hours under the scorching sun, facing confusion and in some cases, leaving empty-handed because their checks weren't ready. Similar reports from NCN, March 17th and 18th, 2025, describe how scores of residents turned out in large numbers to uplift their checks. These delays and overcrowding were completely avoidable. A digital finance framework will not only eliminate these painful delays, but increase transparency, enhance security, and build greater trust between citizens and government in every community in Guyana. Moreover, Madam Speaker, a Stabroek News published article on January 17, 2024, entitled Residents Complaining of Waiting Time to Pay Rates at City Hall. The newspapers conducted an observation exercise and found that citizens were forced to wait 30 minutes to an hour just to pay a simple rate and tax. One frustrated resident was quoted saying, "I've been here since 9 this morning, close to an hour now. That is why I paid for 2 years in advance. Year coming the same stupidness." Madam Speaker, how much longer can we allow our mothers, and business owners to waste hours of their precious time standing in lines that should have been eliminated years ago? I will let that sit in. It is not enough to speak about economic growth. We must ensure that growth leads to a better system that serves our citizens effectively. However, Madam Speaker, we propose this framework. A resident living in the remote region can settle their water bills on their phone in just 2 minutes, rather than traveling long hours to stand in overcrowded lines. Imagine a city hall free from congestion, allowing staff to focus on delivering improved
services, and citizen care. Madam Speaker, the time for digital transformation is now. Our people deserve systems that respect their time, ensure their safety, and improve their overall quality of life. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, as the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, I want to make it clear that the rollout of this digital finance framework will not happen overnight. As the Honorable Minister of Finance rightly stated earlier, such a fundamental transformation requires careful planning and phased implementation. As outlined in our Please Resolve clause, this first phase will focus heavily on financial education, ensure that our citizens are not only learn how to use digital payment platforms, but also understand how to protect themselves from scams, manage their personal finance effectively, and build trust and confidence in the new system. At the same time, NDCs and RDCs will receive targeted training, infrastructure upgrades, and technical assistance. This will ensure they're fully equipped to support and adapt to the digitized system. This will ensure, by rolling out the framework gradually and support both—
Honorable Minister, 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Citizens and local authorities, we will be able to troubleshoot initial challenges, strengthen public trust, and guarantee that no citizen, whether in Georgetown City Center or in the most remote hinterland community, is left behind or excluded. Madam Speaker, it is about dignity. It is about efficiency, equity, and building a financial system that truly works for all Guyanese. The world is moving forward. Guyana must not be left behind. I urge all members of this House to support this motion so we can build a safer, more efficient financial future for the citizens of our beloved country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Juliana Fernandez, Minister of Amerindian Affairs, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of this Honorable House, good morning. Today, I rise in unwavering support of the motion for the implementation of a digital finance framework. As Minister of Amerindian Affairs, I carry the voices of those who too often go unheard. I represent communities where a single trip to a bank means leaving before sunrise, traveling miles over muddy roads or turbulent waters, and returning home long after dark, if at all. Madam Speaker, my objective with this motion is to establish a comprehensive digital finance framework that ensures every citizen, whether in urban centers or remote hinterland communities, can access secure, affordable, and efficient financial services through digital platforms. This framework must be more than just policy. It must be a bridge across the rural-urban divide, giving our people the access, dignity, and empowerment they deserve. In sub-Saharan Africa, digital finance has already put power into the hands of the people, with 28% of adults now owning mobile money accounts. That's not just statistic, it's millions of farmers, vendors, and rural families who can now save and invest securely. Imagine what could happen if we put that same power into the hands of our Amerindian communities. Madam Speaker, this is a certainty that our people deserve and that we must deliver. Furthermore, safety is not an abstraction when I say that carrying cash is dangerous. It's a reality our people live with. Not long ago, according to the Guyana Starbrook News and iNews, a fisherman who was also a father, walking with his young daughter along the Cove and John public road, was shot and robbed of 7 million Guyana dollars just moments after leaving the bank. Another case in Aboystown involved a woman riding her e-bike who was attacked by a 19-year-old boy armed with a cutlass. She was severely beaten and robbed of 30,000 Guyana dollars. Tragic, isn't it, Madam Speaker? Even in our cities, where banks and police are nearby, People are still shot, robbed, and attacked just moments after withdrawing cash. Now, imagine our hinterland communities with no banks at all, where people travel days with money in hand. If carrying cash is risky in the city, it is life-threatening in the interior. This is why a digital finance framework isn't just convenient, it's protection our people must have. On the other hand, a comprehensive academic study published in the ISPRS International Journal of Geoinformation has shown that robbery and other violent crimes are steadily shifting inland closer to remote Armenian villages, highlighting that security in hinterland communities is deteriorating. In this context, providing secure digital financial services is not just a matter of convenience. It is an essential response to rising vulnerability. However, Madam Speaker, it cannot be a copy and paste solution. What works in the capital cannot simply be dropped into the hinterland and expect to succeed. Our indigenous communities are rich in culture, tradition, and unique ways of life. If this digital finance framework is to truly make a difference, it must be shaped around the realities of our people. It must speak their language both literally and culturally, and be built with their involvement, not just for them, but with them. This means rolling out culturally sensitive region-specific strategies, ensuring that no one is left behind in this digital transition. It means investing in capacity building, digital literacy programs, financial education tailored to our way of life, and the infrastructure to support it all. In particular, Madam Speaker, for this digital finance framework to be effective in our hinterland and Armenian communities, significant investments are needed in telecommunications infrastructure. This includes the expansion of mobile network towers, reliable internet access points, and consistent power supplies. Critical component that will enable digital transaction in even the most remote areas. Without the fundamental services, digital finance cannot reach its full potential, and our people risk left further behind. Madam Speaker, I plead with you, as well as fellow members of the National Assembly, to take decisive action in embracing the proposed framework. Let's not allow outdated system to hold back our people's potential. Together, we can unlock financial access for every Guyanese, protect our citizens from risks, and build an economy where prosperity is not just a privilege for the few, but a right for all. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Honorable Minister. I will now call upon the Honorable Sapna Prasad, Shadow Senior Minister with responsibility for finance and public service.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. They tell us this motion is about modernizing Guyana, making us digital. But I asked you, at what cost? Are we ready to gamble with our nation's savings, our rural communities, and the very people who keep this economy alive? I'm not here to deny the potential of digital finance. Madam Speaker, I'm here to warn that without addressing deep flaws in our infrastructure, governance, and public service readiness, we risk turning a good idea into a national crisis. A digital finance framework depends on reliable electricity. Yet, Madam Speaker, we all know that GPL blackouts are still a regular part of life for many Guyanese. What happens to a vendor's transaction when the power cuts mid-payments? What happens to a hospital paying for urgent supplies? When the system is down, digital systems without stable power are like building a bridge without securing its foundation. Impressive on paper, but dangerous in reality. According to World Bank rural population, over 40% of Guyana's population lives in rural or hinterland areas. Many have weak internet. Some have no connection at all. And thousands cannot afford smartphones or data plans.
Digital access is not just about having a signal, it's about affordable, reliable, and continuous access. According to the World Bank Global Finance 2021, in countries with poor connectivity and high data costs, digital finance often widens the gap between the connected and the disconnected. Look at our markets, taxis, and roadside machines. Look at pensioners lining up each month for payments. Are we going to force them into complicated mobile money systems like MMG without ensuring digital literacy? The Inter-American Development Bank 2022 warns that rapid transitions without proper education can cause confusion, fraud, and loss of trust. And when the internet drops, will a market vendor accept a promise to pay later? What is this, the barter system? Madam Speaker, we cannot talk about putting every dollar online when we don't have the defenses to protect it. According to the Inter-American Development Bank and Organization of American States 2020, Guyana scored low in the cyber security capacity maturity model, particularly in incident response and public awareness. We do not yet have a fully functional national cyber incident response team. When systems like Asakuda, used by the Guyana Revenue Authority for customs and trade facilitation, face even minor downtime, commerce slows, that on a national financial scale, but with the added threat of cyber attacks. If a breach occurs, will we be able to respond quickly and protect the pensioners' life savings? The Financial Action Task Force 2022 stresses that robust consumer safeguards must be in place before digital finance rollouts. Without them, big banks and telecom companies can control fees, limit access, and profit from these least able to pay. Framework without protection is a framework built for exploitation, not empowerment. Digital finance can be a part of Guyana's future, but if we ignore the cracks in our present, without stronger cybersecurity, reliable power, universal access, digital literacy, and real consumer protection, this framework risks leaving the vulnerable behind and putting the entire economy at risk. Let us modernize, yes, but let us do it safely, inclusively, and responsibly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We now return to the Honorable Michaela Reid, Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance and public service.
Madam Speaker, while I have listened attentively to the argument of the opposition opposing benches, I must admit, what I heard so far is not a vision for Guyana, but a recipe for strangulation. We cannot afford to keep our economy tied to the weight of outdated systems when the rest of the world is sprinting into the digital age. Madam Speaker, according to the Honorable Member, and I quote, "We are like a man that hangs his basket where his hand cannot reach." End of quote. A good listener is a good learner. But I do not believe the Honorable Member heard me. As I've already highlighted, Guyana is not trying to reach for this digital finance framework. We are already holding it in our as I stated in my speech, and I quote, the number of MMG accounts grew by 59.2% from 39,675 to 63,166, with the value of payments increasing 27.3% from 1.3 billion Guyana dollars to 1.6 billion Guyana dollars. The quote. If you ask me, Madam Speaker, numbers don't lie. Madam Speaker, our hands are not struggling to touch the basket. Our hands are already and we are already collecting the benefits. The question is not whether we can reach it, but whether we have the courage to take the next step to fill it to the brim. Eliminating cash? No, Madam Speaker. That is exactly why I said in my speech, it is a phased implementation. We do not intend to eliminate cash. It is a hand-in-hand system, Madam Speaker. To the opposition members and to those listening, the opposition has it all wrong. We are not asking to throw cash away. It is a hand-in-hand system. And you would like me to reiterate, it is a hand-in-hand system. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That concludes the debates on the motion. I now put the question. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The noes have it. The motion. The motion is negatized. Honorable members, this brings us to the end of our business on the order paper for this morning. Honorable Prime Minister, you may move the adjournment. The Assembly now stands adjourned to 1 p.m. today, 14th of August, 2025.